When I was introduced to higher education, I had an individual, Frank Gallooni from his Nuntuck, knew I had just completed my master's degree, and he said, I need someone with a master's degree to teach manufacturing math, statistical process control, teach one evening class for me. I said, okay. After he kept bugging me, I said, I'll teach a class. At that time, I fell in love with education. I fell in love with working with students. I fell in love with being able to promote manufacturing.
Hey, this is a quick reminder to listen to our Made in America podcast on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our special releases, updates, or highlights.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. I'm really excited to welcome our friend Jim Lombella, Regional President of the Connecticut State Colleges. Jim, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me here.
Well, Jim, it's the Made in America podcast, so we always start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
Well, I consider what we make, especially as Nuntuck and the community colleges through manufacturing, is a quality education. One of the indicators of that really was a benchmark for us is 2 years ago as Nuntuck became ISO 9001 certified. So our manufacturers know ISO represents the standard of quality. It means a company can produce the same quality product time and time again. We've demonstrated in one of the first educational institutions in the United States to go through ISO 9001 certification. That actually is my background. We'll talk a little bit about that, but we demonstrate that we can deliver that same quality education time and time again to our students.
I mean, you're singing all the right words, Jim. Well done. Listen, so I think let's start. I mean, we do need to talk about, what we're producing in terms of students at the community colleges in Connecticut. There's so much exciting stuff that's going on. Community colleges partnering with the state universities and others, also with the tech schools. I know we're working with manufacturers in particular to try and drive what they need, which is solving that workforce challenge. So it's big. It's really important. I think we're only going to solve this problem in partnership between education, government, private sector. So we need to work on that. So a lot of wood to chop there.
Sure.
But I think your background is really interesting because people's background, what drives their passion for something, I think in a lot of ways is a predictor of how successful they're going to be. So maybe you can, share with the audience, your background and how you kind of got to where you are right now at the community colleges.
Sure. So I started off, I actually come from manufacturing as my background. So I spent nearly 2 decades as an operations manager, both in the plastics industry, injection molding, blow molding. Then I went to rigid containers, which is plastic bottles. And then I transferred I worked for Pepperidge Farms, which is a division of Campbell Soup, so high-speed food automation. So manufacturing from food to plastics to flexible packaging. And in that process, I was actually a quality control technician, and then I became an ISO 9001 lead auditor. So I took 2 companies, both Gencoat and Plastipack, through the ISO certification. So again, there's my passion for that quality piece. And when I was introduced to higher education, I had an individual, Frank Gallooni from his Nuntuck, knew I had just completed my master's degree, and he said, I need someone with a master's degree to teach manufacturing math, statistical process control, teach one evening class for me. I said, okay. After he kept bugging me, I said, I'll teach a class. At that time, I fell in love with education. I fell in love with working with students. I fell in love with being able to promote manufacturing, because at that time, as Nuntuck's been doing it 20 years. When I started in 2009 with his Nuntuck, I started off working on a smart manufacturing grant, and I started doing that teaching of that one credit class, which really introduced me to manufacturing. But as Nuntuck for many years, people kept saying, why are you doing manufacturing? This is a lost trade. This is the trades. Why are we having students go into this? So it was so nice to watch the progression through the handful of years since 2009 to really have a governor step in, understand it, support it, put our first manufacturing officer in place state, which I think is the first in the nation.
It is indeed.
So to see some of these growths and to really have the employers, come forward and say, I have these open jobs. I have these skills that I need. So again, we started taking these synergies, these best practices, and we were able to then carry through. So it started off with this Nuntuck, and then it went to Housatonic, Naugatuck Valley, and QV were the next 3 manufacturing centers that we added. We shared this Nuntuck's curriculum. We have mechatronics, robotics. We have welding and fabrication. We have CNC machining, the 3 big programs. And then we landed a CAMI grant as a system, the community college system. And with the CAMI grant, we expanded to 3 rivers. Manchester Community College and Middlesex came on board as well. So now from a single college, we now had 6, 7 colleges doing it. Then we were able to add Northwestern. Tunxis just purchased a brand new, building attached to the campus. It used to be EDAC Technologies. So now we have a manufacturing building, 44,000 square feet. We're in the process of renovating that first 10,000 square feet of that building. We've now had Capital Community College is now partnering with their tech high school, and they're delivering intro to manufacturing in downtown Hartford. So we've gone from one school to having a program or some sort of a program at all of our schools, which is really, for me, to watch that growth. And part of my mission really was, I remember one of the first groups of parents I got in front of, I asked them, I said, raise your hand, how many of you have told your son or daughter to go into manufacturing? 2 parents in the room.
Thought 2. That's great.
I know.
I thought you might have said none.
It was at the time, but I'll be honest. I asked the question, years later, and progressively, I've seen more and more hands going up. People are understanding that manufacturing, they're not just jobs; they're careers. They're good paying careers, and I could go on and on with that.
Yeah. I want to. There's so much to unpack there. I just want to take a little bit of a step back I want to talk about that journey because I think it's important for manufacturers to understand. We've been talking about workforce for a while. Sure. I think we I don't spend too much time talking about COVID because hopefully that's starting to become more and more in the rearview mirror. But sure. I think we were seeing a lot of positive momentum. The last couple of years has been tough all around. But maybe you can, from your perspective, share with our audience, which is a lot of manufacturers, that we are seeing progress, that I think people sometimes don't realize how far we've come. And you really touched on a strong thread there. In 2009, we had one program that was being questioned. Yeah. And now here we are. So just pull on that a little bit more and what you've seen in the support in the system and in the state for manufacturing.
Sure. It really has been a partnership, and you kind of detailed that. It's been a partnership with the state, with the manufacturers. As Nuntuck built their programs off of advisory boards, I think of Paul Murphy, who's been there since day one 20 years ago, helping as Nuntuck, design the curriculum and so forth. Having that input from employers, though, to tell us what are the skills that they need and make sure our programs are lining up with the skills they need, with the outcomes the students are walking out of the programs with. And we've worked very long, with ACM as one of our biggest partners with this Nuntuck. I think they have 114 companies, 6,000 employees. We came up with consortium training because as an employer who ran a production floor, I know I can't take a dozen of my production employees off the floor and send them to a 6-week program, but I could maybe take 2, and this company could take 2, and this company. So we started doing some consortium trainings and really offering that format where we're not worried about the competitive environment. Employers are joining together, sending their employees, getting trained, getting the skills to upskill and so forth. So I've seen a lot more of those collaborations between employers, even our regional sector partnerships. Rather than having a competitive environment, they're getting together now and they're diving into the issues and realizing we all have the same challenges or similar challenges. Let's tackle them together. And let's have around the room the educators and the workforce investment boards and the support systems in the state. They're hearing our issues. They're not driving the meetings. We're driving the meetings as an employer. So I really think this approach to me has been long overdue, and we're seeing results from that already. We're seeing some of the job they're doing job fairs, thank you, and so forth, combining together where years past it was more competitive for employees and so forth. So we're seeing that on the employer side.
So that's interesting. So you not only are you seeing more investment from the state and the schools, but we're also seeing a bit more collaboration, from the companies that are out there. I think it's interesting. You brought up sort of ACM, the aerospace component manufacturers. As individual companies, many of them probably can't move the needle enough. Say, not to disrespect any of them, but lots of small businesses. Yeah. But you put them together, you're looking at 6,000 employees strong. So if they're adding 10% to the workforce across all of them, that's 600 jobs. Absolutely. That you're looking to fill in a given year. So how do those companies, like if I'm a company listening to this and I'm like, wow, I'd love to get my voice heard. Yeah. How do they do that? Do I go join ACM? Do I call Jim Lombella? What do I do to get engaged?
Sure. You can absolutely reach out to ACM. They have a world of resources for their members and so forth as well. You certainly can reach out to the community colleges, call the continuing ed department, call the workforce development department. Those individuals, our B&I directors will come out and sit with a company.
B&I?
Business and industry. Thank you for catching that.
Sorry.
So our business and industry directors, they'll go sit with a company and they'll actually design the curriculum specific to what the company needs. One that sticks in my head quite some time ago, we did a 3M. We went into 3M company and they were having quality control issues and a lot of scrap rates. And they were having language barriers between the supervisors and the individuals running the production floor. So we took their quality manual, we did English as a second language course for them. We put it together based off the quality manual so that we had better communication between supervisors. They told us instantly, within a week or two, they saw their scrap rates going down large percentages. Their hardware going down large percentages. So again, here, that customized training, so whatever employer needs, whether it's communication, whether it's technical skills, we can go in and design those 2-week, 4-week, 10-week programs. Whatever the employer needs, we can design that.
So when employers are thinking about the community colleges in Connecticut, it isn't just about workforce ads. We also have some incumbent worker training opportunities.
Absolutely. We partner with a lot of the companies that come in and they'll send employees. Not too long ago, Pratt & Whitney sent a handful of forklift operators in, and these individuals had worked many years. They knew their work ethic. They were dedicated employees, but now they have robotics moving some of the raw materials around, so they don't need as many forklift operators. They reskilled, sent these individuals, paid them mileage, paid them their regular hourly rate, sent them through a 40-week program at Nantucket, and turned them into machine operators. So they took these in. So again, upskilling, changing skills. So the employers who are investing, we're seeing more investing in their employees, allowing those upskilling opportunities. Like I said, sending employees off the production floor in a consortium training, and allowing them to upskill, creating more entry-level positions as well too. So it really is. We have to look at all levels, feeder programs, short-term programs, and longer-term programs. Because like you said, some of those smaller mom and pop shops, they don't have an infrastructure. They can't take a 5-week trained employee and then put them through an intense 9-month program in their shop. They don't have the infrastructure. So they need the 10-month student coming out of the 10-month program who has a lot more skills. So it really depends on where you are in the supply chain, what your needs are, and we need to make sure that we're doing both feeder programs, high schools. 6th grade, I think we should be starting in.
Sixth grade.
6th grade, getting robotics, getting students interested in mechatronics, let them see that world, spark that passion at a young age. Then they jump into our college connections or our early college programs, and they can go from high school, half a day. They can come to the manufacturing centers at Nantucket. Housatonic has a great program as well with the college. And we're looking at those best practice programs and carrying them across the state so we can have more high school students coming to our centers, getting that early learning experience, and creating some passion, and hopefully creating more individuals interested in manufacturing jobs. So
as you've seen the investment over the years, so as I said, it started in 2009. It was really just the S Nantucket program, and now it's ballooned all over, blossomed, maybe better say, all over the state. What are you seeing in terms of numbers of kids being interested? Like, I know one of the things we talked about, certainly in years past, and one of the goals of the podcast really was to help meet people where they are, to help them understand what modern manufacturing is, something you and I have talked about numerous times offline. What are we seeing in terms of the success rate of educating people out there of the power of manufacturing and the careers that are available and the exciting technologies they can be a part of and the growth and the old saying, right? It's not the dark, dirty, dingy days of yesteryear, but the lean, green, clean technology of the future.
It's modern. It's touch screens. It's
software development. It's robots.
Exactly. Absolutely. So we're before COVID hit. I'll be honest. We were seeing an uptick in enrollments, especially with our CAMI grant. We had a lot of dollars for advertising. The
CAMI grant, just really quickly, maybe elaborate on what that is.
Sure. So the CAMI grant was a grant for manufacturing that we were able to use, a $50 million grant to stand up Three Rivers, Manchester Community College, and Middlesex Community College programs. Those programs were the second phase of growth after Housatonic, Naugatuck Valley, and QV. Enrollments were up, and then COVID hit. And I'll be honest, COVID, because of the social distancing, our centers and our work centers, we had to reduce some of our enrollment capacity because we had to maintain that social distancing. We did move a lot of stuff. It did help us move some stuff online. So lecture classes and those type of things, you don't need to be sitting doing hands-on. We could do those online and then bring students on campus during COVID for the hands-on piece. So we're starting to see those interests coming back now that we're coming out of, as you said, coming out of COVID. Hopefully it's a thing of the past. So we're hopeful that we're going to get more students interested. We've also had the MIF Fund has put some money towards includes advertising as well too, as well as Kelly Valerie's, our workforce officer here in the state, has some money for marketing as well too. And we've shown that correlation when we market, when we do the Make It Here campaign, when parents are seeing, jet engines and airplanes on the commercials and so forth, it created an uptick. We can show a direct correlation with that marketing campaign to enrollments. And again, it's getting that word out there that manufacturing is not dirty, dark, and dank. It is modern. It's touchscreens, like I said, and so forth. So changing the perception. I've watched the perception change. I'd say when I came in 2009, if I had to give it, I'd say 10% maybe the perception out there was manufacturing was a good thing. Now we're at the 60, 70% level.
Is that right?
I feel from parents, educators, understanding, but we still have that additional 40, 50% to go of individuals who do still feel manufacturing is there's not a career in it or it's a dying field and so forth. So we do still have work to do. So
for people that are out there trying to understand, like, what does it mean when we're investing these monies, when we're building out these advanced manufacturing centers? You talked about, Tunxis, buying a former manufacturing building because EDAC moved to a bigger facility. So just good news for anyone out there wanting to know what happened in that building. What's in these buildings? Like if I went there today, what would I see? Why is it important to invest in these facilities?
Sure. Well, I actually had the Tunxis students, because right now while we're doing that build out, we have a program running at Tunxis, and those students are going a day or two a week to his Nuntuck. So we're able to share the resources. A 25-minute ride up the street, we've got the resources, so let's share them. Students, when they walk in the door, there's nearly 100 pieces of equipment on the production floor: CNC machines, lathes, drill presses, manual machines. We start students off to understand manual machining as well. They're not just button pushers. They've got to understand how the machine works. They've got to be able to troubleshoot it when it breaks down and so forth. So they're going to learn on some older manual machines. Then they're going to go to CNC operated machines, computer and numerical controls, where they're learning how to program CNC. We also have welding and fabrication. We have American Welder Society certification at Nuntuck as well. And we have mechatronics robotics. So you can walk into a full lab that has, big FANUC arms moving. Students there's simulated production lines where each piece of the equipment is, you watch the piece go through and it simulates a production line. And instructors do actually break it. So when the students come in and they find it goes through the first two phases and it stops, the students then have to troubleshoot, and so they're all huddled around this machine, really troubleshooting, trying to get the machine up and running. Real life scenarios. When I ran a manufacturing facility, if the production lines went down, every minute was a certain amount of thousands of dollars clicking. Mm-hmm. So every minute that machine sits idle or it's backing up or product being produced. So it's very important these technicians know how to hit the floor, how to troubleshoot, how to figure out what the problem is and get the machines up and running. So we simulate that and teach that with them hands-on in the equipment. So all kinds of equipment, pneumatics, robotics, 3D printing that we're doing, additive manufacturing. Students are, when you watch them walk in for the first time, their eyes just light up and they're just like, wow, this is incredible. And it's clean and it's bright and it's, so it really is a wonderful experience for students, and have that experiential learning is critical.
No, there's no doubt about it. And, I've had the pleasure of being there a couple of times. And there's the computer lab. There's really so much like hands-on on stuff there. I think people understood what we had there and the ability to generate a really compelling 21st century workforce. It's impressive what you guys have there and what you're doing. One of the things that sticks in my mind was, there's a welding training. There's even a welding simulator. So you can say, what environment do I want to weld in? The desert, underwater, high altitude. And it simulates through a virtual reality, simulates the environment. So you can really learn. We've got some really impressive stuff you can do there.
Yeah. Students were telling me they were actually hanging on the outside of a building. It simulates that. They're looking down at the ground where they're welding, so again, it puts them in that environment. We bring that to high schools often. They see that virtual, again, reality headset, and they all want to, jump in and try it. And again, it sparks that interest.
So you said something earlier, I think that a lot of manufacturers would connect to, which is sort of the ISO 9001 certification. And it's just interesting, the thought process there about kind of having consistent production at a school. And I don't know how much more there is to say about it, but it was just so fascinating. I wonder if you maybe can elaborate, like, where did you get the idea of saying, I want to get our school program ISO certified, and going through that process. Just, I mean, what was the thinking there, and what have you seen the results from doing that?
Again, it was really part of the process. Our thought process was trying to demonstrate to employers the quality level of education that we're delivering. So the thought process of you can apply ISO 9000 quality standards to a service or to a product. So we're in the service industry. We're delivering education. So to me, it was this natural fit. I mentioned it to a few of instructors. One of the instructors had a quality background as well too. Next thing I knew, we were going for ISO registration, and we passed on our first attempt, which not all companies can do as well. So proud to say we have a great team at Isnuntuck. And again, carrying that potential across, we can now train our students. They can take and be internal auditors for the program and actually go through the process. So we can start putting out quality technicians with ISO backgrounds as well for our manufacturers.
I think it's awesome. You sort of, you want to sort of maybe eat your own cooking, but you want to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So you're really kind of buying into the whole entire ecosystem.
Absolutely.
It's great. What's the relationship, Jim, if there is one, connecting sort of the community colleges to the technical high schools, to the general education high schools? Like, is there connections or paths to sort of link backwards to show people the full sort of spectrum of, oh, you're interested in computers, you're interested in STEM, like what are we doing to be able to connect those interests from the elementary schools, middle schools, and help people see a path into community college and into the workforce?
Absolutely. So several of our schools partner in Northwest Connecticut, and I just want to make sure I get the high schools right. Northwestern Connecticut's partnered with Oliver Wilcox Tech High School. They have a CNC machining program they've had up there for years. Our Middlesex Community College Advanced Manufacturing Certificate is partnered with Vinyl Tech and Wilcott Technical High School as well. And we actually have a consortium agreement with all of the community colleges and all the technical high schools that we can utilize the space, we can share space. So there is that forum or that platform to be able to make these partnerships as we move forward here. And I think that there are wonderful opportunities to get students in, to introduce them to manufacturing. We also do college connections or high school partnerships. Pre-COVID, we were busing in 115 high schoolers from 5 different area high schools at Isnuntuck. Again, just immersing them for half a day at a time, on the manufacturing center, really creating that passion for manufacturing. So those partnerships to me are critical. We need to expand more of them. And we've had success. Again, I go back in my mind when we didn't have any of them, and now to say we've got 3, 4, 5 of them across the state, and we're partnering, as well as with our 4-year universities. Right now, Naugatuck Valley just opened up a 3,000 square foot advanced manufacturing center on WestConn's campus. So here we have a partnership literally with a 2-year and the 4-year institution together, all working together. They're going to have a high school program there where they're going to bust in high schoolers to WestConn's campus. For the
so you're going to have a
center.
WestConn, a high school program, a 2-year program, and then the 4-year program all in one spot?
We're going to start off with non-credit certificates and then credit certificates there, but absolutely that all feeds in. They're all stackable to the 2-year associate degree, and then the 4-year as well.
I think it's great because one of the things we've talked about for a long time is, bringing students to manufacturing facilities to see what's there. I think the same sort of thing can be if you can get someone in high school to sort of go to one of these programs and sort of see the possibilities, see the future path. I mean, they can really latch onto that.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have open houses, and we do have high schools that bus students in to go through these open houses and stuff too. And that's exactly the point. We're trying to spark some passion with some of the students, see if there's an interest there. And I'm amazed at some of the students. They're earning dual credit when they go in some of these programs. They're earning high school credit. They're also earning college credit when they're in some of these programs too. So they're coming out of high school with some college credits in their pocket towards the manufacturing programs already earned.
What kind of success rate do you have in sort of placements, like people that go through the programs and then are looking to, get jobs in the field they studied in? What kind of placement success are we having?
Yeah, very happy to report for many years it's been 95% plus job placement rates. That means our students get hired. There's usually employers waiting for the next group of graduates to come through and so forth. And really the model that's worked so well is the internship opportunity. So students in their second semester are going out working at the employers. Employers are giving them paid internships. Wonderful opportunity for employers to see the work ethic and see how the student works. Wonderful opportunity for the student to get to see the company and how the company treats its employees and so forth. And 9 out of 10 times, I'll be honest, they have a job offer in hand before they've even completed the program. So the only thing we ask the employers is let them finish the program, but they often do. And I'll be honest, we're seeing more and more manufacturers now sending the students back for the next level of training, letting them take an afternoon off or take an evening class or so forth and reimbursing them. So what a wonderful model to have them going to school, working at the same time, and having the employer pick up the tab for them to continue their education. I mean, to me, that's the perfect scenario.
That is a perfect scenario, and I think that 95% placement is just so exciting. That to me proves that there's strong demand, and so that leads me to my next couple of questions, which are: do you feel that there's more demand than you're supplying currently? Like, if you had more students, could you place more students?
Oh, absolutely.
Do we have capacity to train more students in the facilities that we have?
We do, in some of the expansions that I was just talking about with the new centers and so forth, and the partnerships with the high schools. And now that COVID's lifting, I'll be honest, we have more room and capacity in the classes now too, where we don't have to have the social distancing. So there is absolutely room for us to grow. Even the new center that opened up at WestCon, the Naugatuck Valley Manufacturing Center, they have an opportunity to offer Saturday classes there now too. So even weekends and evening classes, people who have jobs that want to upskill or do a career change, we need to make sure we have those opportunities, class modality, offerings, and settings so that we can have someone who's employed, someone who's unemployed, someone who's just looking to do career exploration. To me, those are all opportunities for individuals to find out what the world has to offer in manufacturing.
So from like an educator's perspective, right? We know that there seems to be a bigger demand for manufacturing employees than we've been able to consistently fill, right? So there's always more open roles. From your standpoint, from your vantage point in that whole process, where's our bottleneck? What could we do? What support would you need? What could you do to fill more of those open roles? Like what's getting in our way?
Sure. Well, I think that the part of just growing, evolving, but also the merger of the community colleges has given us an opportunity to really align a lot of our curriculum. So some of the centers that started with his Nantuck's curriculum, they may have changed it, they may have tweaked it, but there's also some employer need. Each region has different employer needs, so we have to allow our programs to have some flexibility within them as well. But a lot of best practice sharing, took place. So I feel like we're better positioned now than we've ever been to take our best practices, stop being repetitive and redundant. Why am I recreating the wheel at Naugatuck Valley when they're doing something similar at Nantuck? You know what I mean? So again, there's opportunities, and this has given us that format and that platform now to really share, utilize, and leverage the resources we have.
Which is that the one you're saying, the college unification program?
Yes, the college unification. Yeah.
So maybe for people that don't know, maybe you just want to I know there's probably a lot to unpack there, but just a very quick primer of people that don't know what's happening.
Sure. So the 12 independently accredited colleges, community colleges in the state that have separate accreditations as standalone institutions are all merging into one community college with 12 campuses. So again, we can share all of these resources, share 12 colleges worth of resources. Smaller campuses don't have the same resources as bigger campuses. So this will be a way to make things more equitable with services, wraparound services for students, and programs. It also means now that a program that's offered at one side of the state, a student on the other side of the state can now start that program, take courses that'll feed into that program. Eventually, for their program specific, they'll come to that certain campus. That's where our UPass comes in. We have free included transportation, your tuition across the entire state for bus and rails.
Is that right?
Yes, for all students, including non-credit students, have that option. I had a student come up to me the other day and mentioned that they used to pay $60 a month for their bus pass, and now they have it for 3 months. It's $40 included in their tuition, which they can get covered by Pell and so forth. And that's rails and trails anywhere in the state.
So making some real progress there. And so with the one college also, it sounds like what you're saying here is, whereas maybe in the past, if I was in one community college, I couldn't just go take a course at another one because it was a differently accredited school.
You had to reapply, and your financial aid dollars, you'd have to do a consortium agreement from one college to the next to be able to use your financial aid dollars up the street. So as Nantuck, my own son needed his last class to graduate, was told it wasn't offered this semester at his Nantuck, so he had to go to Capital. He went to Capital. They told him he had to reapply. He had to get a consortium agreement. I mean, he came back to me and said, "Dad," he goes, I'm working. I've got to be doing my part-time job at Hoppy, Industries again." And he said, "I don't have time to do this," but he ended up finding a workaround and finding another class we could substitute it as Nantuck and so forth. But how many students have we sent to in this scenario? How many students have tried to take another class here or there? So this will open up a full portfolio, all the classes available to all residents across the state. If it's online, you could be at Norwalk taking it as Nantuck and so forth. So again, a lot less students trying to find that one class to complete their degree when they have a whole portfolio.
Just sounds like an overall simplification. Let's reduce the barriers. We want to get people educated. We want to get them into the workforce.
Absolutely.
We want to help them secure their future. Whatever we can do to reduce the barriers, and it sounds like this is just one huge opportunity to reduce the barriers inside the system.
Absolutely.
So we got that knocked out.
Sure.
Sounds like marketing. Is there anything else that you look out in the landscape and say, man, if we could tackle this or that, it'd really help us generate more more people to put into the manufacturing workforce?
I would say more partnerships with manufacturers with guaranteed jobs for students, and we have some wonderful programs. I talk about our MPI program at the Eastern WIB with Quinnebog Valley and with Three Rivers and what they do up there for electric boat. But again, if we had the more, I'd like to see a little bit more commitments for high, even though we have the 95% job placement rate, that partnership, as well as more manufacturers taking advantage of the consortium trainings that I was saying was being offered, sending a couple of their employees here and there to upskill those employees, and so forth. And really comes down to marketing has been one of my biggest things for years, and the perception of manufacturing. We've got to help continue to evolve and change the perception of manufacturing. So students, decision makers are oftentimes the parents. If parents don't feel manufacturing is a viable career, they're going to guide their son or daughter not to go into manufacturing. So we've got to be able to educate not only the students coming in and create that passion, we've got to educate the decision makers. One of the things we do through our College of Technology, I'll share with you during the summer, we use our NSF grant funding to bring in some educators, some guidance counselors, some superintendents have come in, some principals of high schools. We put them through a 2-week boot camp. I had one guidance counselor not too long ago say to me, I have a perfect student for this program. When they first got there, they said, the student's struggling, they're having trouble with math, they're having trouble. I said, talk to me after the 2-week boot camp and tell me if you think you should send the same student here. Long story short, at the end of the program, she came up to me and she said, wow, I get it now. This is not just someone for remediation. This isn't, we're just sending someone to the trades, which was kind of an older mentality. This is, again, touchscreen. Yeah. You need to understand high-level math at times, so forth. So changing that perception, even in our educators at our high schools, even our guidance counselors need to understand what manufacturing is about so they can give the proper guidance.
100%. Listen, those educators they're somebody's parent too, right?
Yes.
They fall in that same category. Sure. I think that's such, I just want to highlight that point, which I think one of the number one things we need to realize is we've got to get in front of the key decision makers, right? The influencers, if you will, right? Parents are the ones that are going to help their kids pick a path or discourage them from a path.
Absolutely.
They're educators, they're guidance counselors. We got to get them on board. So sharing those stories, I just think is so important. And you touched on something that I think is a perfect example. You talked about the EWIB, the Eastern Workforce Investment Board, and you talked about the manufacturing pipeline that's down there, which is a perfect example of large employer, electric boat, with lots and lots of small employers, that are getting together and saying, hey, we're going to help. Number one, we're going to help funnel people to these programs. Number two, we're going to be there on the other end to say, hey, we're going to be there for internships. We're going to be there for jobs. Absolutely. And that just helps kind of create that flywheel, right? They tell their friends. Absolutely. And that happens. I know we're getting to run out of time here, and I know I'd like you to share your son's story, because I think it's such a great story and a success story. But one thing before we get to that is, what are you seeing in terms of the increased diversity in the manufacturing workforce? You sort of touched on this idea, which is so wrong-headed, which is that manufacturing is for the people that can't cut it somewhere else. That is for sure not the case. But there's also sometimes some thoughts about what gender you need to be or whatever to get into that. Are we seeing some softening in that, and are we helping to kind of move that forward to show people of different backgrounds, women and other people that there's a place of manufacturing for them as well? Absolutely.
So our College of Technology, which landed a $7.5 million grant last year or the year before for manufacturing, we're the one and only national manufacturing center in the United States. There used to be several regional centers. It was a regional center, became a national center. The reason why I say that is they've created a lot of video and content, women in manufacturing, veterans in manufacturing. So they have a lot of this footage that we're sharing throughout the nation, because it's a national center, but also here in the state of Connecticut. And I am seeing more female students, more diverse students in manufacturing than I have ever have in the past. And I can go back to 2009 when I walked through the production floor. It was solely men. There were no women. Now we've got, and the female students really seem to love welding and fabrication, because they get to do the design element. You're making things and so forth. So it really, I think that I agree with you that we need to make sure we're bringing in our Capital Community College program now in downtown Hartford. So again, embracing, I think inner city youth is where our workforce is going to come from. And so to have more programs catering towards our inner city youth and so forth, giving opportunities. And like you said, it doesn't matter what background you're in. This can be a career for anybody, not just a job.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And just there's so many different things in manufacturing, whether it is production, whether it is design, whether it's research and development. There's obviously marketing. There's obviously sales. There's HR, right? All those different things. So some really important aspects there. And I think just as we're kind of wrapping up, I think you should tell your son's story, because we've sort of talked about walking the walk, and not only have you brought your manufacturing experience and background to Nuntuck and to the other community colleges, as president, and not only did you bring the ISO, but your own family's kind of lived it and planned the journey. So maybe you could just share that.
Sure. So not only manufacturing is my background, but I'm also proud to say I'm a proud community college graduate. First generation graduate. My brother and I are the first in our families to graduate from college. So proud to say that. So with that, my oldest son went through his Nuntuck program. He always has loved technology. He's taken apart every car and every toaster I've ever owned. So he went through his Nuntuck and did the certificate program. Then he went into the 2-year manufacturing technology program, and that's where he landed his internship at a manufacturing company. Then he transferred from there through our College of Technology. He transferred in as a junior. All his credits were accepted, just like the pathway. Transferred into Central Connecticut State, and he went into tech education. He's now graduated, became a tech ed teacher. Manchester High School's hired him as a full-time faculty member in their STEM-D program there. He's teaching intro to manufacturing. He's teaching robotics, and so forth. So, and he's halfway through his master's degree in STEM education right now too. So following in Dad's footsteps, loves education, but truly is an example of how you can start from a non-credit program to a credit certificate, to a credit 2-year degree, to a credit 4-year degree, and now he has a career in teaching tech ed across the state. So really is a wonderful example. My youngest, who's a senior in high school right now, is also going into the manufacturing program at his Nuntuck. He's part of the program of the College Connections that comes over, and he buses over now with all of his high school friends in the manufacturing center, and he's doing robotics and mechatronics. So both my sons are following in the footsteps. I think in my household, manufacturing was never dirty, dark, and dank. They watched Dad be successful in it. They know about ISO 9000 and so forth. So I really urge educators, parents out there, decision makers, that these are not just jobs, these are careers in manufacturing. Take a look at them. They're available. Every community college offers a pathway through our College of Technology. There's pathways, like I said, from non-credit to credit to 2-year to 4-year, all stackable credentials. And we just need to continue to get that word out there and educate everyone we can on it.
Jim, that's awesome, and I think it's funny. You're not only making new manufacturing careers at the school, but you're actually raising them in your own house and sending them out there. So helping us all along the way. Absolutely. This is great. I want to kind of transition over to our rapid fire round, and we'll wrap it up. You ready?
Sure.
All right. Red Sox or Yankees?
Red Sox.
Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Dunkin'.
Staycation or exotic destination?
Exotic destination.
Sports car or SUV?
SUV.
Do you have a favorite business book?
Do I have a favorite business book? Who Moved My Cheese is one of my favorites, but
that's a good one. Who Moved My Cheese? I like that one. If you had to do something other than be the regional president at Connecticut Community Colleges, and it could be anything in the whole wide world, what would you do?
I would be president of a community college.
Oh, there you go.
I often say I found my calling in life. It really is. Changing lives is educating individuals and giving them opportunities. I have found no greater reward in life.
Wow. What's something that you learned early in your life, Jim, that you think's helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
You can get a lot farther being kind and engaged with individuals than you can being rude and disruptive.
Yeah, catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Absolutely.
Right? What's something that you learned later in your life or later in your career that if you could go back and tell young Jim, and if he'd listen to you, make a real positive impact?
Take a few minutes and take some time to smell the roses. I think I've gone through life as a whirlwind and often sometimes say I should slow down a little more. We talked about that earlier here too. So.
Sometimes it's good to take a step back and admire what's going on.
Absolutely. And kind of, celebrate the successes.
Jim, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Manufacturing community appreciate it. So we're rooting for you. We look forward to more success ahead.
Thanks for having me here today, and thanks for your mission. You're helping. Our missions are aligned. So thank you.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by CompassMSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.